Alright, we've got fresh reports and a new quote to break down, covering everything from Luka Doncic possibly retiring and which team he'd actually finish with. Yes, there's a direct quote from Luka Doncic about retirement, the trade market, and even a rumored Miami Heat move for Andrew Wiggins. Sadly, more reports keep piling up on this, so we'll go through where things stand right now. We'll start with Luka Doncic's own words, not some rumor or fake source. This came straight from a reporter asking Luka Doncic if he'd close out his basketball career with Real Madrid, which now hits harder after news of the NBA European League. And yes, that league is supposed to include Real Madrid, the very team Luka Doncic grew up with. Playing for and growing up watching Real Madrid, Luka Doncic flat out said he'd be interested in retiring there, even admitting, "I would like to retire at Real Madrid. They raised me." That's a pretty bold statement from Luka. Of course, it's not happening anytime soon. He's only 26 and honestly has another decade left in the NBA. But after that, it's not crazy to think he'd walk away from the NBA, or maybe shift from the American NBA to the new European NBA if it actually survives. At that point, Real Madrid might be his final stop instead of, say, the Lakers or another team in the States. So let's be clear, Luka isn't retiring today, tomorrow, next year, or even in the next 5 years. Still, the fact he's already talking about Madrid should raise eyebrows. Playing for and growing up watching Real Madrid, Luka Doncic flat out said he'd be interested in retiring there, even admitting, "I would like to retire at Real Madrid. They raised me." That's a pretty bold statement from Luka. Of course, it's not happening anytime soon. He's only 26 and honestly has another decade left in the NBA. But after that, it's not crazy to think he'd walk away from the NBA, or maybe shift from the American NBA to the new European NBA if it actually survives. At that point, Real Madrid might be his final stop instead of, say, the Lakers or another team in the States. So let's be clear, Luka isn't retiring today, tomorrow, next year, or even in the next 5 years. Still, the fact he's already talking about Madrid should raise eyebrows. The front office doubled down, saying, "We have championship goals for next year, and we're going after them." They added that having Luka Doncic and LeBron on the same roster next season is a huge moment, and they'll do whatever it takes to deliver the franchise its 18th title. Luka Doncic himself backed that up, insisting his only focus is winning a championship and that he trusts the front office to build the right team around him. But here's the real question. Is the current roster actually good enough to win it all? Or are they fooling themselves? Maybe the smarter play is to take a swing at a trade, possibly with the Miami Heat for someone like Andrew Wiggins. That debate isn't just about one move. It's about whether this franchise is serious about chasing a ring or just spinning in circles. Andrew Wiggins isn't the only trade option, and anyone thinking the Lakers trade talk stopped there is kidding themselves. Sure, that's the hot rumor right now, but it won't stay that way for long. Let's be real. When has there ever been just one name tied to the Lakers in an entire season? Not once in the last 20 years. Expect that number to jump to 5, 10, maybe even 15 players, some of them drawing way more hype than Wiggins. Still, Wiggins remains the loudest and most current name in play for this team. And while reports keep clashing, like Dave McMenamin's note that the Lakers would actually take on a contract running past 2026, that obviously brings Wiggins into the conversation since he's locked in for multiple years. Wiggins' deal covers this season and next with a player option, something the Lakers can't touch. Whether he opts in or out is entirely up to him. Still, that technically fits the Lakers' trade approach of chasing guys under contract past this year, as long as they match the timeline and needs. And according to reports, they're after a so-called two-way wing, which Wiggins clearly checks off. The problem? He might not be the ideal long-term piece, even if he makes sense for their short-term window and current 15-man roster. But here's the twist. Some reports flat out claim this trade isn't happening and that the Lakers aren't as serious as others suggest. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points even reported 2 days ago that the interest level isn't nearly as strong as people are making it out to be. Reports said the Heat and Lakers weren't talking about an Andrew Wiggins trade and that the Lakers weren't that interested. But that was before the bombshell that Tyler Herro will need foot surgery. According to Shams Charania, Herro will have surgery on his left foot and will miss the start of the 2025-26 season. The big issue, there's still no timeline for his return. If it's just a few weeks, fine. But if he's gone for 2 or 3 months, or even until the trade deadline, that's a massive problem. At that point, the Heat's already shaky playoff chances. Because let's be honest, they weren't contenders even before this. Could fall apart fast. Without Herro, they're not just weaker, they're sliding downhill hard, and the clock on their season could be ticking out before it even starts. Even in a weaker Eastern Conference, with both the Pacers and Celtics losing their stars, Halliburton for Indiana and Jason Tatum for Boston, I still don't see the Heat as better than a 6th seed. I'm not putting them above Cleveland, New York, Detroit, Orlando, Milwaukee, or even Boston without Tatum. At best, they're a borderline top 6 team, and more likely sitting at 7 or 8, which would throw them right back into the play-in tournament with no real hope. That outlook doesn't justify holding on to Andrew Wiggins in my opinion, and it could push them to rethink his future sooner rather than later, maybe even before this season starts. But here's the thing, ownership hasn't changed. This is still the same Miami Heat front office, and history says they'll keep playing the same game they always do. The Lakers shouldn't box themselves into an Andrew Wiggins or bust mindset, even with Tyler Herro's injury making a trade more likely and the Heat more open to moving him. It's still not worth forcing the issue. I'd rather wait, watch how this roster performs, and see if they truly need a player of Wiggins' caliber. Yes, they'll eventually need a 2-way or 3 and D wing, but that doesn't mean it has to be him. Maybe they could settle for someone like Matisse Thybulle or Haywood Highsmith, guys who can patch the hole without pretending to be stars, while banking on a current player stepping up to take on more responsibility. That's where things stand right now in my view. We'll just have to see how desperate they get before the season really unfolds. Now it's basically a waiting game to see if reports surface saying the Heat have changed their mindset, whether they're ready to move Andrew Wiggins, shop every veteran they've got, or just sit on their hands like usual. We'll have to watch how that plays out. But overall, those are the latest updates tied to Wiggins, the trade market, Luka Doncic, and even where he might eventually retire. Strange twist, right? LeBron's retirement is the one we should be talking about, yet somehow we've got more clarity on Luka Doncic's retirement plans than LeBron's. It's almost ironic. People expect LeBron news, but instead we're hearing about Luka possibly retiring with Real Madrid. At this point, it feels like we know more about Luka's exit plan than we do about the Kings. But with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the reports about Luka Doncic, the report from Dave McMenamin about the team's future and their trade plans? If it may be Andrew Wiggins' trade might change following the injury to Tyler Herro and maybe the Miami Heat changing their mindset. How do you feel about that, and what do you think might change, if anything, regarding it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and so with all that said, what do you think? What's your take on the Luka Doncic reports, Dave McMenamin's comments about the team's future, and the trade buzz? Do you think the Andrew Wiggins deal could shift now that Tyler Herro's injury might force the Heat to change their mindset? Or do you think nothing changes at all? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That pretty much wraps it up for this one. If you liked the breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. As always, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day or night. Have a great day or night.